Her love didn't vanish in a dramatic burst. There was no slammed door, no suitcase by the curb, no teary-eyed shouting match under flickering kitchen lights. It wasn't cinematic like that. It disappeared like sand slipping through my fingers, grain by grain, moment by moment. So gradually I didn't realize I was losing her until the emptiness was all that remained. Started with the silence. Not total silence, just the soft absences you don't notice at first. Her texts used to come like clockwork, little check-ins, inside jokes, tiny reminders that I was on her mind. And then fewer, order, slower. I'd stare at my phone waiting for replies that used to arrive before I'd even locked the screen. When they did come, they felt strained, too careful, too edited, as if written with obligation instead of affection. Then her words changed. "I love you" became hesitant, stretched thin with a pause between each syllable. Not dramatic, just uncertain. Like she was reminding herself to say it rather than meaning it. Like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. Her eyes told the truth before her mouth ever did. Once, they used to light up when they found mine in a crowded room. They used to sparkle, God, they sparkled. That flicker of warmth, of recognition, like I was home to her. Slowly that light faded. They still looked at me but didn't see me. Not really. Her gaze was distant, distracted. She was there but miles away. I told myself it was nothing. She was just tired. Work was stressful. She had a lot on her plate. We were fine. I convinced myself of that lie because I needed to believe it. But the truth about love is, when it's real, you never have to wonder if it's still there. Love doesn't make you question its presence. It just is. Steady, loud in its silence, unmistakable. But she was fading. One night I asked her quietly, almost timidly, "Are we okay?" She nodded too quickly, smiled too brightly. "Yeah, of course." But her voice cracked at the edges, and in that crack I heard the truth. It settled in my chest like a cold stone. I knew. I think I'd always known. Still I stayed. I stayed because I loved her deeply, fiercely. Enough to believe that if I just tried harder, gave more, loved better, she'd come back to me. So I fought. I brought her flowers on an ordinary Thursday. No occasion. Left little notes in her bag, the kind that used to make her laugh. I planned evenings, cooked her favorite meals, tried to recreate the magic of before. But most nights she barely noticed. Her eyes stayed glued to her phone, and her smile never quite reached her eyes. I was fighting for something she had already released. Holding on to a rope she had let go of. There were still moments when she felt like her again. She'd laugh at something I said, touch my hand like she used to, give me just enough warmth to keep the hope alive. And then, just as quickly, she'd drift away again. Some days she was the woman I fell for. Other days, she was a stranger living in my house. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was a slow bleed. Quiet unraveling. And with every drop, I lost a piece of myself. My laughter dulled. My joy shrank. I started disappearing in the spaces where her love used to live. One morning we sat in silence over coffee. Her hair was a mess, eyes barely open, scrolling her phone like I wasn't even there. I looked at her, really looked, and realized something awful. She wasn't the woman I knew anymore. But worse, I wasn't the man I used to be either. I had hollowed myself out trying to keep something that no longer existed. So I stood. I gathered what was left of my heart and walked away. No argument. No accusations. No grand declarations. Just quiet resolve. I left not because I stopped loving her, but because I had finally remembered to love myself. The silence afterward was suffocating. I kept checking my phone expecting something. Anything that said she cared I was gone. But nothing came. No text. No call. Just empty space where we used to be. The loneliness hurt. It burned. But slowly, so slowly, I began to feel something else. Softness. Peace. I started to come back to myself. Picked up hobbies I'd abandoned. Reconnected with friends. Laughed without trying to make someone stay. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living. Then, one stormy night, with the rain slashing against the windows like it was angry at the world, There was a knock. I opened the door and there she was. Soaked through, eyes red, mascara streaked down her cheeks like war paint. She didn't say hello. Didn't ask how I was. Just stood there trembling, voice barely audible. I messed up. She said she missed me. That she'd only realized what we had after it slipped away. That I was her home, and she'd been too blind to see it. She begged for a second chance. Asked if we could start over. Rewrite the ending. And a part of me, a part of me had waited for that. Rehearsed it. Played that scene over in my head during nights I couldn't sleep. But another part of me had moved on. Had buried that hope and planted something new in its place. So I looked at her, really looked, and I understood. Love shouldn't shatter you just to prove it's real. It shouldn't have to break you to be valued. And true love doesn't leave and expect you to be waiting on the doorstep when it returns. I still cared for her. Maybe I always would. But I cared for myself more. I took a deep breath and said gently, I hope you find what you're looking for. Hope you heal. But we're not who we were. She cried. Promised she'd wait. Swore she'd prove herself. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she didn't. But sometimes love isn't about second chances. Sometimes it's about recognizing when the story is over, and choosing not to rewrite it. I closed the door softly. Not with anger, just with peace. She lingered a while, hoping I'd open it again. But I didn't. Healing, I'd learned, isn't about who comes back. It's about who you become after they're gone. And that night, in the relentless rain, I finally understood. The greatest love story I'd ever write was the one where I chose myself.